I'd like to talk a bit about Star Control 2 and why that game got to me so much. The gameplay itself was good, of course, but it's the sci-fi setting that really made me love it. It's a classic space opera epic of a war against implacable alien foes, exploration, first contact, the discovery of previously unknown levels of reality, and the rise of humanity to our place in the stars. All of it set in a universe of remarkable depth and scope. The story is much larger than the 5-year slice that the game portrays, giving the impression of a colourful and detailed universe. The backstory goes back 250,000 years, and many questions remain unanswered, such as, what is the true motive of the Aralyn? Do they really have our best interests at heart? What did the Ors do to the Androsynth? And was there any truth to what the Ur-Quan said about unknown evils greater than them? Perhaps the ultimate evil that the Spathi fear. It's things like this that make the universe of Star Control 2 seem larger than it actually is, and that contributes greatly to the epic scope that any space opera needs. But ultimately, I think what's so appealing about it is the positive view of humanity that is presented. Sometimes it's hard to be proud of humanity, given our dark history, but in all the great sci-fi epics, we are presented with a future in which humanity has united, grown up, and left the cradle. We have gone to the stars, and we have left behind the childish things that made us unworthy. And finally, after having fulfilled the dreams of centuries, venturing into the final frontier, we are attacked by the unrelenting forces of the Ur-Quan. After our seemingly inevitable defeat, we are given a cruel choice. We must either give up our cherished place in the cosmos and be condemned to forever be a primitive society, trapped on our world, forever denied the stars. Or we can become an agent of evil, doing the Ur-Quan's bidding as they continue to enslave or imprison all sentient life. It says something about the progress humanity has made since then, by the fact that we chose to give up our cherished freedom and our destiny in space, rather than become mercenaries for evil. The Ur-Quan's path from savagery was not so different from our own, at least to start with.
You see, alien, we were a proud and mighty race, who were cruelly enslaved. For thousands of years we had no free will. We were nothing more than tools. Never again will anyone enslave our people. We cleanse the galaxy of such threats. We evolved on a hostile world, the descendants of solitary hunters. In a world where one species is the dominant killer, one's only threat is one's brother, one's sister, anyone of one's species. Civilization did not come easily to us. We earned it. We mastered our hatreds and murderous desires to form a mighty culture. In those ancient days, there was no Kor-Ah or Kazerza, only the Ur-Quan. We explored our world, and then the space beyond. Here we met the 6 races of the sentient milieu. Here we met the Tailo, the only species we ever called friend. Our association with the Tailo and the milieu lasted for 3,000 years. Of all the species we have met, only the Tailo did not trigger our instinctive territoriality. They were the only people we could stand with, or talk to, without the hunter inside us screaming, "Kill the interloper, rip out its life." We believe that the same factors that made the Tailo non-threatening to us, their unusual rock-like biology, also gave the Tailo natural immunity to the Dinyari's psychic compulsion. The Dinyari would not permit this. After they had conquered all 6 of the other races in the milieu, they commanded us to attack the Tailo, and we did. The Tailo would not fight back. They died. For thousands of years, we were unthinking slaves to the Dinyari. Like the 5 other surviving races of the old milieu, we had no choice. The Dinyari's compulsion was too strong to resist. But the Dinyari were not satisfied with their slave races. Yuli and the Draw were inferior, they decided. And so they instructed us to incinerate their worlds, and we did. When we discovered that intense pain could block the Tinyari's mental powers, we were able to destroy them, but it took years. Can you imagine, alien, what it must have been like to wear an excruciator? To live in endless screaming pain for months on end? No, you cannot. When the war was over, the great core rose from our ranks and declared the path of now and forever. We would cleanse the galaxy. No one would ever threaten the Ur-Quan this way again.
Centuries of mental slavery, having to kill their only friends, and the suffering they had to endure constantly just for a chance of freedom. It's no wonder they've been driven insane by fear of ever having to face this again. They decided to do to others what had been done to them. Beyond reason or morality, they are compelled by the terror of repeating this fate. Could any sentient being be expected to behave differently after enduring such things? It's almost enough to make you feel sorry for them, but they must be resisted all the same. However, the Kazatza, the green Ur-Quan, often try to imply that they are doing this for our own good, having been the ones to decide that slavery and imprisonment is a kinder fate than extermination. They seem to see themselves as benevolent, at least in comparison to the Korra. It appears they have even started to believe their own justifications.
In our 20,000 years along the path of now and forever, we have dominated thousands of species, yes, but we have saved hundreds from extinction. You imagine the threat of unknown invaders or alien pestilence born on the solar wind. We have seen these, but you do not acknowledge your own worst enemy, yourselves. We have found dead worlds without number, planets ravaged by atomic fire or Gaian collapse. These planets were not rendered sterile by outside forces. They bear sad testament to the effects of unrestrained instinct and emotion, or simple ignorance. We will prevent such mistakes.
I don't doubt that this part is true, that they have seen such devastated worlds. We face the danger today of self-destruction because of primitive territoriality, superstition or ignorance. But the best lies, of course, are half-truth. This is just their way of hiding their true motive, which is only to avoid becoming a slave by being a slave master. They fail to understand that other races share their need to be free, that they were destined to be overthrown, just as the Dinyari were. Ultimately, they are not so different from the Spathi. Both races are motivated by fear. However, I would say that the Ur-Quan are even more afraid than the Spathi.
For 100 of your crew.
There was one point where the game presented me with a moral dilemma. The Druj had possession of an artifact that I needed if I was going to fix the Utwig's Ultron and acquire their precursor bomb. However, the only trade they would accept is 100 of my crew, to be used as slaves for who knows what purpose.
The Rosy Sphere, an ancient precursor artifact of unrivaled beauty and mystery. Yours for the amazing bargain of only 100 crew.
What? You want 100 of my crew? I need the Rosy Sphere if I'm going to fix the Utwig's Ultron, and I need their planet-destroying device if I'm going to... Do I sacrifice 100 people to save an entire race, an entire species, an entire galaxy? I choice. I wish to acquire the rosy sphere. The artifact seemingly could never have been taken by force, and without it, all of sentience would have faced slavery or death. But in a story which centres around the issue of freedom and slavery, to force the hero into a choice where he must become to some degree like the evil creatures that he opposes, perhaps that's why it stung so much for the Druge to say how they are no different from us, and the captain is merely a hypocrite.
We know your soul, young captain. It is no brighter than ours. We acknowledge our greed. We revel in it. You are the dishonest one, hiding your shame in shadows. You fabricate justifications, rationales. In the end, we are just the same.
He did it to save his people, but then, in their own way, that's the same rationale the Ur-Quan used to justify their enslavement. Sometimes, in an imperfect universe, there is only a choice between the lesser of two evils. But the lesser of two evils is not good and cannot be justified morally. The ends do not justify the means. Those 100 men and women will forever be a wound in the captain's heart. He didn't do the right thing. He did the necessary thing. The old man we see at the end of the game undoubtedly would still carry the scars of such a decision. The aliens in science fiction are not usually intended to be a realistic representation of what extraterrestrial life would be like, but as a way of presenting exaggerated aspects of humanity in an external context, in order to better see these aspects in ourselves. The Melnome and the Druge are an interesting case. Usually, a capitalistic society is presented as malevolent. The Druge are indeed a good example of this. Their approach is not one of fair trade among equals. They are con artists, and every non-Druge is a potential mark or a slave to be bought. The Melnome, however, seem to genuinely embrace a system of fair trade, and they have a rather unorthodox view of charity.
In fact, in our culture, giving, with no fair exchange of goods or services, is considered vulgar and inappropriate. Please do not mention this subject again.
On the other hand, every trade good has an intrinsic value to them, and they don't overcharge. I suspect they would consider this as vulgar as undercharging. When they describe the Druge, they fail to even mention that they are slave traders, instead criticising them for their low prices and hidden tariffs. Interestingly, the Korah referred to the Melnum, one of the members of the ancient sentient milieu, as one-eyed. Could these be the ancestors of the Melnome? Given their vast knowledge of the region and galactic history, it's quite possible. Without their help, albeit through equitable trade, humanity would never have acquired the knowledge or technology to defeat the Ur-Quan. Given their mercantile philosophy, they could not have helped us without us offering something in return. It always puzzled me why they were apparently so interested in acquiring biological data, which they could have easily gathered themselves. Perhaps it was the only way they could justify to themselves giving us what we needed. Not all the aliens are such sophisticated examples, however. The Thradash are, of course, a rather blunt presentation of someone who consistently fails to learn from their own mistakes, believing that might makes right despite nuking themselves back to the Stone Age several times. The Spathi are another rather blunt example, demonstrating another downside of allowing fear to be your sole motivation. Despite having ships that are a match for the Ur-Quan, they chose slavery out of fear, and even slave-shielded themselves, leaving the Alliance without any more of their starships. If the Alliance had not managed to destroy the Sumatra despite this, they would have been doomed when the Korah defeated the Kazat Tsar, broke the slave shield and annihilated them. I quite enjoyed the sly Landro, so insatiably curious, and yet condemned to an existence without any possibility of developing technology, trapped as inexorably as if they were under a slave shield. In their desire to explore by proxy using the Melnome probes, their naivety unwittingly unleashed a deadly accident. I would hope that the new Alliance would go to their planet and uplift them as the Yihat did for the show Fixty, granting them ships with suitable life support systems and allowing them to take a place among the stellar community. Their long memory would undoubtedly be a great asset, especially since they are the only living race to have memory of the precursors themselves, who they call the Shaggy Ones. However, some of the aliens seem to be more truly alien. They represent beings so different from us that there's not much to recognise of ourselves in them. The Mycon, for example, don't seem to think the way we do, apparently sharing some form of collective consciousness, and have no understanding of other beings as anything other than obstacles to be overcome. None, as they say. The Urs are also a very alien people. This is due to their origin in another universe. What we see as Urs are merely the protuberances into our space of extra-dimensional beings. Their thought processes are sufficiently different from ours that communication beyond the basic level may be impossible. This brings me to another aspect of sci-fi, and that's the mind-bending concepts that it describes.
We are from the outside. Also, the Arilu Quick Babies are from outside. It is the same, but not. Urs are from below. Arilu are from above. Urs does not like Arilu. Arilu are too much trouble. We cannot have parties when Arilu always jumping in front. It makes Urs frumple so much. These are fat words. Do you want to play this some more?
So it appears that the Urs came from the opposite direction than the Arilu. Above seems to refer to hyperspace and quasi-space, and perhaps further regions along this dimension. The realms that lie below are unknown to us. The Urs don't seem to like the Arilu because they are preventing them from moving between dimensions by jumping in front.
There are parasites, creatures who dwell beyond. They have names, but you do not know them. They would like to find you, but they are blind to your presence unless you show yourselves. The androsynths showed themselves, and something noticed them. There are no more androsynths now, only Urs. In a way, ignorance is your armor, your best protection. They cannot see you now. They cannot smell you. Much of our work with your people involved making you invisible, changing your smell. If I tell you more, you will look where you could never look before. And while you are looking, you can and will be seen. You do not want to be seen.
So according to the Arilu, the Urs are one of these extra-dimensional parasites. They found the androsynths because of their experiments with interdimensional fatigue, and have replaced, killed, or done something to the androsynth. The Arilu refuse to give us more information because even knowing such things can change our smell and make us detectable to other beings like the Urs. Strange whimsical manner of the Urs may be hiding a more sinister purpose. They were very eager to join the Alliance, but that doesn't mean the Arilu are any friendlier. Perhaps they just want to keep us all to themselves. Being manipulated in this way, even if it's for our own good, does not sit well with us. It is an affront to our freedom. We've had enough of arrogant, supposedly superior species taking our destiny out of our hands.
And when the process is complete, we will crack the Ur-Quan slave shield and emerge from our chrysalis like a winged insect unleashed from its cocoon.
The Chimera are a fascinating alien race. A blending of crystalline and mechanical beings, something I've never seen in sci-fi before. Their nature as logical, unemotional beings allowed them to take this long-term path, each giving up their identity to become something greater than the sum of their parts. Once they are bathed in the energy of the precursor sun device, they emerge as promised. Their first words in their new form are an exultation at having loosed their bonds.
We are free!
Despite the fact that this could have resulted in their destruction, they do not express regret or frustration at the captain for his actions. The Chimera then play a pivotal role in overthrowing the Ur-Quan and restoring freedom to the galaxy. Despite how different they are from us, their need for freedom is just as strong as ours. Which brings me back to what struck me the most about this series. Perhaps it's because of the other sci-fi epics it reminded me of, but the struggle for freedom is always stirring. I quoted a great line from Babylon 5 in this series. I cannot even come close to doing it justice. I'm about to give some spoilers for the second season of Babylon 5. If you haven't seen the series and you plan to, I'll give you a moment to stop this video if you don't want to hear the spoilers. The quote comes from a speech given by Jakar, the ambassador of his people, the Narn, after his world has been subjugated and enslaved by the Centauri. His character gives such amazing speeches that I can't resist including this one now. Since nothing I can say will top it, I'll end the video with that clip. Thanks for watching.
No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We will teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free.